This is Paul One to Digital Tuesday. Today, Tuesday, we have Farid Ali hosting Hard Talk, and the topic deals with parang, parang, parang. By the way, it's the 3rd of December, some 22 days to Christmas 2024. And we got a special guest who will be coming up in a short while. Good afternoon, Farid.
Good afternoon, David. It's good to hear your voice. Good afternoon to the public who's listening in today. Today we have a special guest in terms of one Neil Makano. Mr. Makano should be joining us shortly. So we should have an eventful evening chatting about parang music and his views on where the genre has gone in terms of its journey from Aguinaldos to Soca Parang. David, how's everything going? How's your Christmas shaping up?
That's a good question. I have at least 21 more days to make up my mind as to how it's going. But I love the season, and you know me as a the musical aspect of our culture. I always advocate for it. So when Parang comes around, I have my views on Parang. I'll have my views on steel band, calypso, soca, whatever is the musical aspect of our culture. I jump in with my both feet, hook, line, and sinker. You know, um, I always say I am the cultural lip. I could be challenged, but I don't drop my guard when it comes to that. I'm very defensive of that, and I have a lot of problems as to how things are panning out. From then to now. So that's my take on Christmas. But I always enjoy Christmas.
The thing is, when I was growing up, there's a hype even among children and a hype with adults in terms of the preparation, the month leading up to
Hmm.
the big day, which is Christmas Day. And
Yeah.
somehow I'm not getting that feeling, when I'm in Tunapuna, which is a rural area in the east, I'm not even seeing stores, merchandisers, uh, have any big set of thing on the road. Hearing music, normally you would hear everybody turn on
Hmm.
the volume on the music system and competing noises coming from stores. Now you had to poke your ears in a direction, hoping something could catch your ear.
Well, that's what I'm
Nothing
talking
happened.
about
It
when
had
I
no vibes.
yeah, when I told you that I have problems with certain ways of dealing with what I call re-music and re-culture. I always repeat that to make people understand where I'm coming from. When you look at traditions, as Trinidadians, I would not say Trinbagonians, because Tobagonians hold on to their traditional values, and they might modernize the traditions, but they hold on to it. In Trinidad, we have become uh, a bunch of people who just love things foreign. They love to change what to make entire change, I should say, to what should be, amended or adjusted, if those are the correct words, to some of the traditional things, like parang, the authenticity of parang, as compared to parang soca or soca parang. As a matter of fact, you're not sure what's the label for that. It's if it's parang soca or soca parang. you know, the way how some young people see soca as compared to calypso. I think
Uh,
pan steel pan stands alone, and steel pan it has been modernized in a lot of ways, but it has maintained a traditional trend that I will always say hats off to steel bandsmen. From the Pancho bigger point of view, I have that's the administration, and I have my own take on how they administer and handle the steel band fraternity. But I still will work with them. I still respect them. All the entities I respect, but I think where some of the traditions are concerned, we have a problem with that. That Christmas way of celebrating, the way we normally celebrate Christmas, it has changed. It has been Americanized. I'm not afraid to say that, and it makes me wonder, how can we be identified as Trinidadians when it comes to Christmas. I mean, in Tobago, you still have people who go all the way to maintain a traditional celebration of Christmas. In Trinidad, a lot of that has changed because I too, I mean, and it's not now, it's not this year, it's not last year, it's been some years in the making where you don't hear the Christmas sound in the air. You know, in the towns, you'd hear all the stores blasting Christmas music, whether it be American or Trinbagonian, you know, Parang Soca and Parang itself, or Christmas Calypso, as I call some of them. And you know, the way people prepare at home, you know, you might have to go way in the rural areas to observe people still celebrating like that, and as to what extent. So I have a problem with us throwing away traditions where a lot of things are concerned, you know, even calypso music, you know, and when I say music, I'm talking about music. The lyrics is another thing again. So I think we are very good at dumping traditions, and I think it takes away that unique Trinbagonian way or Trinidadian way of celebrating, especially Christmas, as you're talking about today.
The thing with it is, when I speak with some of the bands, the parang bands, and I speak with their management, I
Mhm.
often ask them if it is they of the view that the Aguinaldo, which is what the music, the authentic music that actually highlights the birth of Christ, if they have the view that it has become so commercialized that it's actually moving away. The music has taken its a position where it's moving away from stressing on the birth of Christ to other things. So when we hear songs like "Bring Drinks" by Sprang Alarm, um,
You know, I will stop you there and say there's a partition. There should be a partition of some sort where that is concerned because authentic parang and parang soca or soca parang or Christmas calypso, you know, I think those are two different uh, categories of the musical celebration of Christmas. I wouldn't mix them. I don't think I mean there could be a comparison as to what Parang Soca, Soca Parang, or Christmas Calypsos, the lyrical content, you know, it has certainly deviated from the celebration of the birth of Christ. You know,
yeah.
Parang, on the other hand, authentic Parang, it came from that sort of belief. It came from that sort of what I should say. I wouldn't say worship, but it is an observation um, of the celebration of the birth of Christ. You know, it had a
Mhm.
spiritual twist to it, and it had a musical accompaniment that endorsed that uh, sort of a spiritual way of doing the parang. Because I mean, I can remember back in the days. I've been following this for a very long time in the period. I've been following this since parang. The acoustic instruments were never amplified, you know, and then it came to the era when it was being amplified because of the massive turnouts that we had experienced for Parang festivals. The last occasion
So
when we
what you're stating, it was essentially a string band in the original days, meaning straight percussion with no amplification at all.
no, that's right. It was like that, you know. These bands will come and play, and they had no amplification at all. You know, not even microphones at that time, because I was at another media house. I'm not afraid to say it's a defunct uh, media house in the sense of 100 FM. And the 100 FM now is a different 100 FM. But back in those days when we started off at the lower end of Abercrombie Street, I think it's number 15, right where that Guardian building is. I mean, that's where um, NBS was. And then we moved to Marval Road to team up with TTT, and it was ICN, and then it came back to NBN, right? But back in those days, we 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 followed Parang in every nook and cranny of Trinidad, and well, I've never been to Tobago with it, so I'm saying Trinidad. I'm not excluding Tobago, but
Yeah.
we went to every nook and cranny, and back in those days, they would have parang, especially in places where parang is a sort of signature of the uniqueness of the area, like Lopino, San Rafael, Maracas, St. Joseph, Siparia, um, Paramin. You know, when you go there, I mean, even during the year, you'd see guys hanging out with their quattros and things, but it was mainly acoustic in, acoustic instruments all the way. You know, the quattros, the guitars, the box bass, the marac and the tok tok and all of that. You know, and then it started to evolve where well, the festivals in the whole, a lot of people gravitated to the festivals because it was pure fun. There were nothing violent. It was pure fun, and it exposed the areas that will have Parang as a unique thing to the area, like Lopino and San Rafael, Paramin to an extent, where you'd be served Spanish foods like empanadas and pay me and this kind of thing. You would not have seen hot dogs and burgers and thing. I mean, it evolved so much that vendors would come around and sell those things. But back in those days, it was like that, and there was no amplification. I remember being master of ceremonies too, while we were doing live broadcasts on 100 FM back in those days, and it used to be very interesting to me to see the performances and the reaction of the people to the performances. I mean, people would be dancing whole night, wherever the parang was held, wherever that festival was held, it was always crammed for space, to the capacity, and people were dancing, and there was a showcasing of the population makeup at these parang festivals. There was a cross section of the people. Like you might talk Calypso and Steel Band, and you might see more of one than the other. But Parang brought out a real, what should I say, a coming together of all the peoples of Trinidad and Tobago, from as high as it can be to as low as it can be. It was really interesting to see that sort of coming together of the people of Trinidad. And I think the music, people looked forward to hearing parang, authentic parang. I mean, back in the days of Daisy Voze and Los Cantadores, and some of those big bands. They will always be featuring them at various venues across Trinidad. And I think on the last occasion we had this parang talk, I think it was last week. I was asking about the Parang Festival. And, it's sad to see that we have thrown away that tradition of celebrating, let's say, the birth of Christ through the Parang music around Christmas time. I will make some comparisons to other religious uh, people who celebrate a sort of a unique and authentic way when it comes to the celebration of like Diwali and Eid. I'll always try to develop a conversation about that as compared to how Christians celebrate Christmas. I remember back in the days when I was a little fella, the build up to Christmas was kind of quiet. And when I say quiet, you had to clean everything around the house, every single thing, even paint stones. You had to have the house spick and spank, and there was on Sundays and stuff, you had to go to church. There was no two ways about that. And then it evolved into a sort of a celebration. I don't want to say bacchanal, because I could be, people can throw stones at me for that. but it has
Mhm.
gone into that kind of way of celebrating. And like I said, it was another way of throwing away the traditional way of celebrating Christmas, you know. I think if, especially if it's about the birth of Christ. I mean, sometimes I wonder, wow, you know, it's more like bacchanal. It has evolved so much and has changed so much that during the build up to Christmas, there will be mass band launches. There would be soca music, you know, being, you know, promoted and marketed for Carnival 2025 or whatever carnival is to come, you know. So it's a mix now that, you know, it's just a time when people look to have a good time now, you know, how much liquor they can drink or how much bacchanal and party and all of that. And I think it's quite different in comparison to the way Hindus will celebrate Diwali and the way Muslims will celebrate Eid. But who am I to talk of that kind of comparison? Who am I to make mention of the dumping of traditions? Because I personally will point finger to the people who are in authoritative positions that should have implemented a sort of a maintenance of tradition. It's the same thing. I mean, you sent me some messages on my phone, put it into soca. You know, that is what is happening. You know, calypso music. It's not in sync with the kind of calypso music we had before. And I'm not saying it should stay as it was, you know, but the traditional way of doing it, that crafty way of doing it, we have lost that. It's the same thing with Parang. I remember while Parang was evolving, even in the big festivals, there were massive festivals in Farid. That um PTSC compound where housed the National Parang Association at one time was the main venue. The big finals will be held there. Sometimes the big semi-finals will be held there. And there was so much parang bands. You know, I can hardly remember all of them, you know, but there was so much parang bands from all nook and cranny, like I said, Los Familia de Rio Claro, you know, a lot of them, and, you know, bands would just be coming. And it's not difficult to move a parang band because a parang band is just quattro, guitars, box bass. It can fit in a paddle van or two, three cars can move a parang band, you know. And I really enjoyed that authentic, unique way of showcasing parang music, you know, back in the day. And then it evolved where there were arguments and some people had serious concerns about the inclusion of electronic equipment like the electric bass, um, Los Alumnos de San Juan brought in the tenor pan. Los Tocadores also had a tenor player also. And that is an acoustic instrument, but a lot of people voiced their concern about the inclusion of that. But it kept evolving and evolving. There were some bands, I can't remember the name of the band. They did a sort of a Latin, they had a kind of Latin uh, 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 twist to Parang. They had electric bass and electric guitars and things, but they were part of the Parang festival. I don't think they were into the competition per se because of that, because there was a lot of argument and a lot of concerns, if I should use that word to make sure I stay in my crease, about the inclusion of these electric instruments. You know, but the bands who were adjudicated were strictly acoustic bands. And then, well, the tenor pan, being an acoustic instrument, was allowed in. You know, Los Alumnos de San Juan, they won the Parang Festival on several occasions. Alicia Jagasa became our new Parang Queen as a replacement of Daisy Vosé, you know, but back in the day, that authenticity was well pronounced when it comes to the expose and the showcasing of Parang music. And it hits my heart to know that we still have Panorama, we still have um, Calypso, Calypso Fiesta, we still have soca on the scene. But like I said, where traditions are concerned, even soca, I mean, Soca Monarch, which was a signature event in the carnival. I mean, it was privately run by Mr. Monroe, but it became a signature event. Mr. Monroe did human service, a very awesome approach to projecting soca. And now that's, I don't know what's going on with that. You know, when you look at
I
Calypso,
guess we had to give Passion Diego credit for what they have done in order to keep the
no, no, no,
culture
no.
alive.
That's yeah, that's why I single them apart
And,
from the.
and Pat and Pat seem to be struggling for organization.
Well, I would like to know how that ended up like that because I remember Cynthia Ross, our guest is here. I remember Cynthia Ross playing a very integral role in keeping it on the front burner. I know they had pulling and
Cool.
tugging as they will always have in administration and stuff, but I think we have given up. We have thrown away a lot of what is was and still is expected of Para. I think it's very unique. I think more attention should be paid to it. I know Alexia Jagasai is at the helm now, and I know she's probably having a difficult time in hmm, the administration and the showcasing of Padang because trust me, from the depths of my heart, I really and truly miss the Padang festivals that we used to celebrate in a big way. Your guest is here first.
Mr. Makano, Mr. Makano, good afternoon. It's good to
Mm,
see you.
Good afternoon. You hearing me?
I'm
Loud
hearing
and
you and we're seeing you. So
Well,
hopefully
excellent.
we have no yes. Hopefully we have no connectivity issues.
Well,
We're hearing and seeing you well.
the thing about paranderos is the parang is not a full time job. So you have to come from your full time job to come and talk about parang. And
isn't
and
that
you
a
know
sad statement? Huh?
yeah, I mean if parang could sustain an individual, then I wouldn't be late because then I wouldn't be rushing for my job. My job would be parang, so I could talk parang whole day.
I hear you.
So
I hear you.
thank you for the invitation. And I heard the gentleman talking about Cynthia Ross and Alisa Jagasa and where Parang is. And we know that's such a sad point to a lot of Paranderos as to where we are and where we're heading and where we're going. Um, so, I mean, a lot can be said about where we were before as to where we are now, right? So, Farid, I allow me to talk a little bit about myself first before we get into a lot of these.
Yes, yes. If you could tell us, I often ask our guests, um, where they where did they breathe their first breath of life in what community you came from? Where did you grow up in Trinidad?
I actually grew up in Twin City, actually. Well, I
Okay.
was born in San Juan. I spent most of my life in Trinity. But my mom's is actually from Mundo Nuevo, which is actually a kind of a Parang area. That is Talparo
Hmm.
side heading up to Mundo Nuevo side. So that's a kind of Parang area. She actually introduced me to Parang when as a young age. Um, I remember on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and the holidays that she used to put on her radiogram. And long time people used to have these nice little radiograms. And she used to put on her Daisy Voze and Las Muchachas del Agua. And we used to listen to Parang music. She also used to create. Then days Crazy had his Manzanari and all, just we used to listen to all. And that is when I actually fell in love with Parang actually. One of the first set of instruments that I actually started to play was the maracas. She actually taught me to play the maracas. She used to play maracas, and I always remember her talking about this story about her in Mundo Nuevo and her dad going around the neighborhood with some friends and they're playing parang, and she on top of his neck shaking her little maraca. So, and in
Hmm.
that aspect, I actually learned the maraca as the first instrument in parang, percussive instrument actually. And I played in some parang bands actually as their maraca player.
So what age you started in terms of, if you could narrow it down to a number?
I was
When did
just
you first
about
pick up the mark?
at home in my parents' home. As I said, because she used to play maraca, so she should teach me the styling of the her style of maraca shaking. At the age of that's now becoming maybe 11 years old, 10 and 11, I started shaking maraca at that age. And of course, I didn't belong to any parang band at that time. But anyway, that I heard little parang, I would take out my little maraca and make a little shake. I wasn't proficient then, but as the years went by, I started to become a little more proficient, enough to join different parang bands.
The so the ability to play a maraca and play those percussion instruments that we associate with parang music, that is something that's a proficiency that one can acquire, or you think you have to have an innate talent for? Because somebody like me, I can't sing, carry a note, play an instrument, and I wouldn't even try. So I would think that there has to be
So,
some sort of.
well, it takes, it's an art. It's an art. So I mean, anybody can just take up a maraca and shake it there. So I always draw a reference to when people talk about patting your head and rubbing your tummy, right? So yeah, they tell you pat your head and rub your tummy, and it sounds easy, but if you actually try it on the first time, you try to pat and rub, it never happens properly because it's all about two-hand coordination. One hand has to do something, and the other hand has to do something else. So it is a matter of practice. So that sometimes you keep patting your head a little bit first until you get it kind of regular, so that you don't study about patting the head anymore. So that as when it becomes all natural, then you try to rub the tummy, right?
Right.
So that in that aspect is the same thing with when it comes to actually learning how to shake maraca. So unfortunately, I don't have my percussion back here with me. Some other member of the band has it, but with because some people shake maraca with either their left hand or their right hand. What we call the dominant shake is when you move your hand up and down, right? And with the up and down motion that is what we call the regular cut motion for the maraca. So it's a motion that you actually practice enough so that you actually forget that this maraca is in this hand. And when that happens, and you
Right.
can actually move back and forth with this without even thinking that it's there, it becomes so natural. Then you work on the other hand, and the other hand is an up down motion, up down motion, up down motion, and that is the one that gives you all the markmen and them do all their stylings and stuff with this. The other their right hand or the left, according to which one is the dominant hand. So the regular motion, then the up and down motion is what actually gives you the sound of the maraca. Now, different people learn different stylings of it. But what you learn is what makes you most comfortable. Because if you have to shake maraca for 40 minutes, and I have seen some people actually put some robust efforts in shaking their maraca. They say they have plenty energy because to last for 40 minutes shaking robustly maraca, you have to have plenty energy. But there are some people who actually use their wrists when they're shaking the maraca so that they can go for long hours. They're shaking a normal maraca and getting the song that they would get. So in that aspect, I learned from my moms how to shake, but don't tie yourself out then, actually, because it can be easily, it's an instrument that you can easily tie yourself out with. So that was one of my first instruments that I did was the maraca itself. And I remember the first band that I actually shake maraca in. It was a band called Los Buenos Paranderos. And it was in those days, that band was being run by a guy called Sean Lewis. And I was the maraca shaker for the band. And we entered competitions and stuff like. I remember a competition we were in at the Lions itself, when I was actually shaking 4 maraca, 2 in each hand. And I was so into it that at the end of the performance, they had to sweep the stage. The marks went all over the place. The seeds were all on the floor. And if you see the stage with all these marak seeds all over it, first, I want to put so much energy in this marak shaking. At the end of it, everybody watching, they say, what is on the ground? They say, the marak seeds all over it. People that come and sweep on the stage afterwards. Plus, I want to put so much energy in the marak shaking.
Mm-hmm. But tell me something about the marak.
That was actually my first love.
In a steel band, the rhythm section is a special. It's the engine room at the performance, right? The rhythm section in a steel band. That's without a rhythm section, without the iron section, the bando, a steel bando song the scene.
Right.
Would you say that a marak is the band follows the lead, meaning it's important that you set the pace for the marak player, set the pace. If so much so that if the marak man go off, it could throw the band off?
Of course. You see, a lot of people talk about the tok-tok. They talk about the tok-tok running the rhythm and stuff like that. And the tok-tok keeping up the pace of the band itself. But if a tok-tok is playing and the marak person is shaking slowly, then there's a disconnect. And the marak shaking actually could throw off the band itself. Because with the tok-tok itself, if a tok-tok plays fast, you play fast. If a tok-tok plays slow, you play slow. But if the marak person is out of sequence, then you yourself kind of lost. Because a lot of people sometimes don't even listen to the tok-tok. They actually listen to the marak in the band itself. So they actually take their rhythm itself from the marak player itself. So that's why marak players are so important in bands. Just like you said with the steel band. Just like you said with the steel band, the engine room is important. The marak is the key player in that engine room.
Right.
Here, Parang band without a marak player, and you'll hear the difference. Let's say them play normal, no marks. You'll hear the difference.
The steel band now refer to the tok-tok as the jam block. Is it the same thing? The jam block and the tok-tok? It's the same. Kinda. It's a different name for the same thing, or that's two different things?
It's two different. The tok-tok itself is a percussive instrument, and it has one rhythm for Parang. It has another rhythm for Latin, and then there's another rhythm for what we call the soca Parang or the Parang soca. Right? So that's the marak itself also has different rhythms for that. Right? So a good marak player could play a normal Parang rhythm, a Latin rhythm, and could play a soca Parang sort of a rhythm as well. So it's all according to the how efficient the player is.
Let me ask you this. You said you played 4 marak, right?
Yeah. You want to know how I was able to hold 4 marak in my hand?
Well, apart from that, the sound that will be emanating from 4 marak certainly will be different from 2 marak. So
right.
in performances, in competition performances, are there standards with a Parang band when they take the stage? Because you playing 4 marak, a next band might say in competition you should only be using 2. I don't know. Or are there rules to how you instrumentalize your band?
No, there's no rule. The purpose of the 4 marak was because remember a marak really they don't really mic maraks in a Parang band. I've seen them actually doing it now, but a marak really not supposed to be mic'd in a Parang band. So the effectiveness of the marak is supposed to be heard naturally. So at times you have players that play 4 because they want to get a louder song, right? But again, you have to be proficient on it. Now, marak in itself, the 2 marak itself is not similarly weighted. One is normally a little heavier than the next. So one gives you
Oh, he's frozen there. A lighter
we get a slight freeze there, but it's going nice. I mean, I learned something yet.
Yeah, and to add to what he's saying there with the 4 marks, as he's playing 4 marks on his own, there were bands that had 2 marak players. Yeah? So it had,
But that's something like even more bacana because if you are 2 marak players and one more proficient than the other, then they could in other words, I would imagine they had to work in tandem with each other. They had to be
remember they'll be practicing,
well rehearsed.
Yes, well rehearsed. They always are well rehearsed, and they operate in sync. you'll see parang deros with 2 mark players. Sometimes the 2 mark players are holding 4 marks in their hand. Our
I
guest is
think he's back with us.
yeah. Welcome back.
We were just carrying the conversation along the lines of where you left us. So take us back to that point there. My thing is, you're saying some maracas maybe a bit heavier on others in terms of it carries a different song as opposed to others.
Yep. If you see a Marakman standing, or somebody interested in a Marak standing up next to someone who's selling Maraks, they'll always be going through all the different ones that he has to get the actual perfect song that they're looking for. So some might be light, and Marak in itself is something that has to be dried properly. Because some people sell any Maraks and the body in itself is not dried properly. So the sound you're getting from it is not a correct song that you're getting from it. So if it is too green still, you're going to get a muffled sound. So the body in itself has to be dried properly in order for the mark itself to song nicely. So some of these decorative marks that you see they're selling, and you tell yourself, oh, nice mark, boy. And it's looking pretty, but it's not sounding pretty. So you have to be very careful. You test it out and you see, and you must know, from the time you shake the mark, you know that the body not dry properly at all. And
I guess
actually, the longer you have that mark, the sweeter the mark sounds, because then it dries properly.
So a Marak man might want to play his Marak and not borrow one because he don't know the song in the next man Marak.
Of course, we have mark persons who walk around with a mark in a bag. Because that's the instrument. That's the instrument. They walk around with the mark in their bag. And if they have to borrow somebody's own, most of the time you would know who own you want to borrow, because you would have heard the band play and the marak man play. So you know and hear that the marak that he has is a good marak. So if I have to borrow one, I will go to this individual and say, let me borrow your marak now, because you know that is a good marak that fella play.
Walk us through some of the other instruments apart from the marak. Authentic parang, walk us through some of the instruments that we can expect in our authentic parang band.
Right. Over the years, we have had so many discussions over the instruments that paranderos are supposed to be playing. And obviously, the one that comes to the highlight is obviously the cuatro, the 4-string instrument. And all parang bands would have a cuatro. And that is one of the basic instruments that paranderos use in parang bands. Then we have the guitar, which paranderos also use as well too. Now, you could either use the guitar as a strumming guitar. You could use the guitar some bands use it to pick as a lead instrument. And then some use the guitar to carry a bass line. So the guitar can be used in more than in one way. Then we have also the lead instruments, which cross forms. The mandolin is the first one that comes to mind. That has been the longest standing one. The banjo is an instrument that I've used over the years. The flute, the violin, all those are lead instruments that has been used over the years. And that's called a charango. We also use that as a lead instrument. Harry, talk about the charango. Right. So that is also a lead instrument that is also being used. Then, of course, the box bass. A lot can be talked about the box bass, about the originality of the box bass. And I always remember Wayne Flores talking about the originality of the box bass and how the box bass itself never started with a string. And that the box bass itself used to carry 3 iron prongs. And they used to strike the 3 iron prongs to give it the 3 notes. And over the years, they removed the iron prongs and put the string in so that you would get more notes. Of course, no one string can ever give you A, B, C, D, or E, F, or G. Plenty of people have claimed that they could play a C note on a box bass, but I mean, you have to have extremely sensitive ears to be actually be able to play a note on a box bass, right? There's some people have reached close to it. Um, Kudos to them, but it is very hard to get an actual note. So that's why they say the box bass is a percussive instrument. And of course, some bands have actually added to the bass itself. Some play electric bass along with the box bass. Some play electric bass alone. They don't play the box bass. Then we have the congas. We have the normal congas. Some people play the African drums as well. They play the kettle drums as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then some people have trap sets in the parang band. They play the trap sets. So over the years, we have been sort of commercializing the whole aspect of it. And I'm thinking if I have the scratcher. The scratcher is one that has been involved as well too. Traditionally, they use the wooden scratcher, but a lot of bands, when they're doing their Latin music, they tend to more go for the metal scratcher.
What's your take on the evolution of parang music from the
Well,
perspective of a parang band and the inclusion of electronic instruments?
well, for someone who has been playing parang in maybe the 60s or the 70s, they themselves might be a little disappointed to see where parang instrumentation has reached. Because in those days, it was strictly mara, cuatro, guitar, mandolin. Those were the basic instruments that they, well, I think the banjo, the violin, there's a walk around with as well. And it has now evolved into now electric bass, electric guitar. We have incorporated the pan, which is the national instrument as well. So, but the older folks themselves say that, this commercialization of the parang itself is not what they are accustomed to. And but you have to remember that the parandero himself has to evolve, because what was expected of the paranderos in those days is not what is expected of the paranderos nowadays. So the parandero himself had to move with the times. Just like Calypso had to move with the times, soca, paranderos of them had to move with the times as well. There will be persons who will tell you, I like the old time style of parang. Some people call it the rum shop parang. And yet there will be others that say, we more like the more commercial style with the electric bass and stuff like that. So there are going to be different thoughts of it. And I know that the parang association itself has had a hard fight over the years in keeping all the authentic instrumentation to remain as authentic instrumentation. It's been a hard-fought battle, but then when you're trying to throw a show and you're trying to get patrons at your show and they want to hear a certain styling and brand of music, then that's a challenge that you always will be faced with. I hope that answers your question.
I will take that for an answer because I am, okay. If you look at America still have orchestras. Nothing has changed. America had funk. Funk had its own instrumentation, as the term you're using. That hasn't changed. Even though they brought in rap and all of that, there are certain things that they don't change. What I'm saying about parang itself, authentic parang, I think okay, so we went into amplifying authentic parang. While you were off, where you broke away from us a little while ago, I was explaining to Fareed, and even when we introduced the program, that I followed parang for many, 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 many years. And I began listening to parang and getting into parang when there was no amplification at all. right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were quattros, guitars, mandolins, box bass, and all of that. What I'm saying, when they had these big Parang festivals, that big competition that went to every nook and cranny of Trinidad, um, they brought in the amplification, or like we said, the miking of these instruments. Choreography came into where the frontline dancers will do a lot of dancing and that
Yes.
whole
Yeah.
frontline approach. But what I'm saying is why I'm not against evolution. And let me say that before I ask the
Mm-hmm.
question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
against the evolution, but if we are talking and we want to promote and market Parang as a Trini thing, I think the traditional authenticity of Parang should have been maintained because we now have amplification of these same instruments. Even the frontline vocals and all of the backup singers and all of that. It's amplified now. So what I'm saying is that we should not have dumped that tradition because of evolution. It could have evolved, but I think to make it unique, when you come to Trinidad, you come to hear Parang, that authentic sound of Parang. I had no inclusion, no opposition with the inclusion of the steel pan because it is an acoustic instrument, right? And it made
Mm-hmm.
it more Trini. I know that had a lot of concerns being aired about the inclusion of the steel pan, but I had no problem with that. But I also don't have problem with bands that are using electronic equipment. And what I'm saying is that we cannot dump that unique sound of para, that
Right.
authentic
Right.
sound.
Right. So I don't think that Parang has dumped that unique song. Right. What I think that has happened is the Parandero himself now has to be faced with um, opportunities that is being presented to him, and opportunities that if he plays a traditional instrumentation, that he's not going to be welcome in where he's that he should be, rather than if he has to amplify his himself. I'll give you an example now. The National Prang Association has, like what you said, because I was in that area as well too, where we used to have shows all over the country,
Mhm,
right? And obviously, there has to be some sort of amplification, because I mean, people wouldn't be able to hear you.
mhm.
And the amplification of the normal acoustic instruments people used to enjoy. So every weekend you go in San Rafael, Lupino, Arima, um, you're
Separia,
heading down Siparia side,
San
Rio
Jose.
Claro, and all these places that are parang areas.
Mhm,
And at that time, people used to welcome parang down in those areas.
mhm.
If you're having a show down there, you could charge money and people would come to your show. If you go back to these same areas now and you try to have a show, the handful of people that you're going to get, I can count on my fingers and
Hmm,
hands.
hmm.
And there lies the problem that the association has right now. What
Right.
do I do? Do I stick with the authenticity of it, or do I now encourage other persons who are not, as we say, traditional parang listeners or traditional parang goers, to now come to the shows that I am doing?
Hmm,
And there lies the challenge.
mhm. I
And so
understand
there
that.
has to, and right now, what is happening is a balance. The current president, Lisa Jaggers, is trying to get a balance of it. So she's trying to maintain the authenticity, because this year the shows that we're having is house parang shows.
Hmm,
So she's trying to keep the authenticity of it, yet also try to have the person or crowds of them who would not have listened to authentic parang come out to our shows, because you have a mixture of both authenticity and commercialism involved.
mhm.
And it is a heartbreak, because sometimes some of the older ones say, you know what, we don't already like the commercialism aspect of it. So you're going to lose some of them
Dave, I think we just had a small break there. He got knocked off, but we'll reconnect with him. We'll reconnect with him. Um, One of the concerns I have, David, is whether when we introduce more instruments and different instruments, that the instrumentation of the band could lead the band away from the original Parang song. The My concern is when you make a addition, you introduce a pan, you introduce other instruments, whether we're losing anything or whether we're adding to what we already have. Um, so you find singers like Kenny G. Kenny G got into double anta, and when you listen to the instrumentation of Alexander perhaps definitely have a pan inside it. You could hear other instruments, but I'm not hearing this original Parang song, Parang melody in it. Neil, allow me to ask you this, right? Um, you were saying earlier that the paranderos have to move with the times. You're there with us? You're hearing us? Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I'm hearing you. I'm
paranderos
hearing you.
have to move with the times. I take that to also mean that the instrumentation in a parang band will also have to move with the times, meaning that the additional instruments, the adding of different percussion instruments would have to. You're moving with the times with that too. Hence, we have the introduction of the national instrument.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing, and I'm not trying to switch the conversation in a different way, but I'm thinking we're on the same theme here, that the lyrics moving with the times too. When we see Double moving into the parang music, Kenny J singing "I Want a Lick," well, that's the chorus. The song is Alexander. And when we hear Marcia Miranda singing Tifing Parang Band, do you consider all of that moving with the times, or you think it's moving away from the what substantively what the parang music is meant to be about? Because
Right.
there are some people in the industry like yourself, older people, older paranderos who saying that they have a problem with moving away from Aguinaldos and celebrating the birth of Christ to where we are now, where we get into hardcore double anta, which is almost sacrilegious in their eyes. When you chat with them, they find it sacrilegious that we go on there, that we move so far away from the birth of Christ and celebrating Christ's, birth, to
Well,
getting
I,
into some of the things that we in. Do you see that
I
as moving with the times, as you say?
well, I totally agree with you, and I mean, for I could initially talk about the aspect of my parent band, which is Los Amigos Cantadores, and
Yeah.
we don't sing those kind of soca parang songs in our band, and there are a lot of bands in the association that don't actually sing that. The concept of the aguinaldo de nacimiento is something that has always been preserved with the National Parang Association, and even at the school parang level, we still preserve that the schools and them, both primary schools and secondary schools, have to sing either an annunciación or a nacimiento, right? So that aspect of it is one that we are preserving and keeping close to our hearts because we really don't want that aspect of it to be lost. Now, with regards to soca parang artists who create, because I mean, a soca parang artist obviously wants to make money, so obviously they will create a song or soca parang, which is in itself is another debate as to what is a soca parang or what is a parang soca. That is the next debate by itself. And so the soca parang artist itself will create a song, as you said before, I Want My Brush, and they have Alec, they have this room sings a lot of them as well too, Apu, and a series of these songs that these soca parang artists are them singing. Obviously, they're doing it because they want to get jobs and stuff like that. But the Parang Association in itself has not advocated for its parang bands to sing those sort of songs. In fact, on an NPAT stage in itself, if I remember myself from way before, soca parang in itself, or parang soca we call it, was never sung on an NPAT stage. The parang bands themselves would actually sing those secular songs when they go and do their commercial performances. So if a company hires them, or if they go by somebody's home or something, so and they request a soca parang song, then they would sing. And most of the time, I don't ever hear them singing Eddie Charles Metoy or the other one with the piggy. Right? You don't hear parang band singing that. And even when Scrunter had brought out his songs, Leroy, A Piece of Pork, and those what we call parang soca songs, which carried some sort of a message, you will hear parang band singing, I want a piece of pork for my Christmas, right? Only Roy, where mother gone, she gone, parang, right? Something like that. But parang bands in itself, or parang groups in itself, I'm sure I could talk to many of our parang groups, and they could tell you that no, we don't go down that route. We leave that for those sort of soca artists to go down that route, right? Now, now there are paranderos that get into the soca artist arena and sing soca parang songs. Or parang soca, because Fija is one of them, Candy Cane is one of them who's singing, and the songs that they're singing is actually helping out the parang association because it is clean parang soca songs. So we appreciate that, but again, that aspect of it we don't condole at all, right? Because how you gonna sing a song about the birth of Christ, and then right after that you sing about the pig? How that gonna look?
Right.
So in that aspect, yeah, we don't condole that in that aspect. And I've been with the association since 2007, and definitely I could put them a neck on a block that we don't condole that at all. The private engagement, that's different. And
does the association?
Sorry, before you talk about that, I want to talk about a little bit about the private engagements as well too.
All right.
And people who hire parang bands now. People who hiring parang bands now, they actually ask you, your parang band, do you sing Latin? Do you sing soca parang? So bands have to now incorporate these things into their repertoire if they want to get jobs. So a normal parang band, and singing a parang song, and people listening to it. But as soon as you sing a little Latin or you sing a little soca parang, people, you can see the joy in people's faces.
Right.
And it means that these secular songs mean so much to them that an aguinaldo or nacimiento. One of the few nacimientos and aguinaldos that people still get excited for is like Alegria and all the Daisy Voices and stuff like that. Jagasas and them Cantando Gloria that people listen to regularly as well. But there are rare ones that people actually say, okay, these nacimientos or aguinaldos we really into. So you find yourself having to sing what the persons require you to sing, but you don't get smutty. That's the key to it. You don't get smutty. Because you're still a parang band that sings an annunciation on the birth of Christ.
Are you of the view that the market, right, in terms of private events, when people ask you to come and perform, ask the paranderos to come and perform, and they want to know if they're singing Latin, if they're singing parang soca, do you think that the commercialization of the industry has impacted upon what the focus of the bands? In other words, the need for money and the need to stay liquid in terms of making money has taken the paranderos in a direction where to be relevant and to be viable and to keep your band alive, and to be in other words, to be a commercial success, that they're forcing the industry and the market has forced the paranderos to lean in a particular direction. They have to go where the sunlight is, like a coconut tree bending towards where they can get the lights and where they can feel the money.
Correct. Yes, yeah, you're very correct. Because I mean, paranderos, like all artists, want to obviously, after the season is finished, want to know that they have made actually some sort of money. And it is even more difficult for a parent group because a group has between 10 to like 18 members you're talking about.
Right.
So unlike a single artist who the only people that he may be responsible for, maybe the driver that is bringing him to the event, and maybe the songwriter who writes the song for him in the first place. The parang artist now has to now study the 10 or 16 members that they have in the band itself, and now has to now ask this company now for a certain amount of money in order to be able to sustain the members in their band. So in that aspect, the parang bands now have to now incorporate now certain things because they want to get the job. So they now incorporate, if they ask them, do you sing Latin? Of course we sing Latin. We have a few Latin selections in our repertoire. Do you sing soca parang? Yes, we do sing soca parang. We have a few soca parang in our repertoire as well. So as I said with the coconut tree, definitely Ben has happened over the years when it comes to commercialization.
The introduction of the national instrument with the parang or authentic parang music, what is your view in terms of that marriage? Is it a marriage that is more steeped in the commercialization, meaning to become relevant, be introduced as steel pan, or you think that the marriage is a natural marriage, given that the steel pan is a percussion instrument? You think the fit is a good fit in terms of it's a natural fit, or you had to stretch it?
It is very interesting that you asked me that question, because I was the president of the National Parang Association between 2007 and 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And within that era, there was a fight to bring in the pan into parang on an end part stage.
Right.
Los alumnos used to use their pan in when they were performing, and that when they used to compete, they didn't used to play the pan, they used to play the mandolin. So there was a lengthy discussion over the years as to the incorporation of the steel band. And I'll be honest with you, in the first instance, I was against it. I was one of them who was against it, right? And I advocated for it not to come into the competition. I had no problem with it being played commercially. If you were going out to your commercial engagements, you're playing it. But on an end part stage, when they were dealing with the competition, I was one of them who said, no, we don't want this pan in the competition itself. The conversation went on for years, until it was finally decided that yes, we will incorporate the pan in the competition itself. And so hence from that on, the pan was incorporated, and a lot more bands incorporated pans in their performance. I could tell you that today, my band has a pan in it. Right? And we itself have seen the significance of the pan itself as a national instrument. And if you're coming to Trinidad and you're listening to parang and you hear pan in parang, it sounds good. So some people, as with everything, some people take a little longer to adjust. I was one of them. I ain't sure to say I was one of them. It took me a little while to adjust it, right? But yes, the pan in itself has been an excellent instrument incorporated in the parang itself.
All right. So my next question would be, which one of the pans is more likely to fit in with the authentic parang instrumentation as opposed to others? Because recently I saw some. Is it Los Alumnos de San Juan? That's the name of the band. And I thought I saw a panist in the band.
Yes. So that
Emmanuel George, a Renegades player, was playing what appeared to me to be a single tenor.
Yes. So it's a single tenor that they played, but in fact we had a competition last year. We all band didn't take part in it, which was a pan parang competition, and they allowed not just the tenor pan, but I think it was the tenor pan, the guitar pan, the double second as well too, to be able, and I think it was a 3-piece. I'm not pan man, so yes, excuse me. And the 3-piece bass pans to be incorporated with the parang band in the competition itself. And from that competition itself, I think people were kind of happy. Kind of happy with it. But me personally, I give you my personal thing is that the tenor pan itself is because you're actually using the tenor pan as a lead.
Right.
So the tenor pan in itself would to me it gives it a better feel in a parang band rather than I have a double second or a guitar or more pans involved in it.
Right. Well, I noticed I was at one of the president's gardens when they have these open shows. Someone used a double tenor in one, but I could see the tenor being the natural instrument that flows into and that could fit in.
Correct. Yes, it does.
You know how things evolve. Next thing you know, we hear a jam block inside it, and they're throwing other things.
Well, I mean,
and drum the music out.
Well, I mean, you don't want to drown the music obviously out, right? I mean, like La Divina Pastora, the guy Brian in La Divina Pastora plays the dantal, right? Which I understand is an Indian percussive instrument. And over the years, that dantal, if you hear the dantal, it sounds very nice inside the parang band.
Right.
So I think if you're incorporating something in it, is how you use it, and not to make it an instrument that overpowers everything else and becomes way out front there. So the instrument now is way out front, and you hear the instrument, but then there's no balance with regards to that instrument and all the other instruments in the band itself. Right. So it's all a matter of balance itself, and who knows what else could be incorporated in a parang band.
When we look at we discussed so far the instruments and the composition of the band, the marriage of how does it affect the vocals when it is you have this introduction, the addition of instruments, your vocalists like a Daisy voice. Daisy have a voice that really is infectious and it's original. I mean, it's like a Rod Stewart song. You know that you know Rod Stewart when you hear him singing.
Yes.
You can't be mistaken with a Daisy voicing of a song. How does voicing relate to the instruments? Is it that I've heard bands, I can't call names because I don't want to end up on the wrong side of the law, but I've heard some bands and I'm saying, but these are good singers. But I don't think that they should be singing parang, but I don't know nothing. I can't sing. What is your view in terms of the voicing? Do you need someone with a particular style, talent to voice a parang song and Aguinaldo or get into that parang music?
Well, that is interesting. It's very interesting. Because I think sometimes the best of singers sometimes can sing parang.
Right.
And it is nothing that, I mean, the top of of their art form in vocals. But a parandere in itself, remember, a parandere in itself has to sing a different sort of a beat than maybe a different genre of music there. I'm trying to get a styling in my head right now, right? And that I mean, that forte is not really my sort of a forte. The instrumentation and how the instrumentation should be. But someone who sings parang, and you know a good parang singer when you hear the person singing. And sometimes their voice is not, sometimes a good parang singer is actually not a singer who songs very clear. Right? And over the years, they may develop the clearness in their voice. But someone who just comes out with a sort of a rough sort of a effect, especially males themselves, sometimes actually become pretty good parang singers. Good examples is the Lara Brothers.
Right.
the Lara brothers themselves is not pitch perfect singers, but the way they sang complemented their music.
Right.
So when you're doing your parang band now, and with regards to the singers, some people would actually test out the singers to see, okay, this singer's voice might be the best for this song, or this singer might be best for another song. This singer might be a better Latin singer than a parang singer. So anytime you sing in Latin, you will find this singer will be singing. There are a few voices that can actually sing the whole parang, Latin, soca parang. I mean, Alicia is probably one of the few that actually can do all three easily. But it is all about a bit of trial and error, and to get it proper and to get it right.
When we look at listening to a live parang band and listening to a studio piece, like every other band, that's a different feeling. How difficult it is to produce an album, as we say in the old age, to produce a studio version of a parang selection, a parang song, as opposed to a live performance, because I would think in my naive world it's two different skill. When you're in a studio, what the producer would want to hear and what one is looking for in terms of for the production may be different on stage. But walk me through that now. Do you have any
All right, so
take on that?
all right, so for instance, a live performance speaks for itself, right? Everybody has to play to the specific rhythm and everything that the band is playing to, right? If you make a mistake in a live performance, there's no retake, right? But if you're in the studio itself, then actually different studios do these mixes differently. Some take the full band and they mix down the full band. Some will actually take instrumentation by instrumentation. So what they will do is have a version of what the song is supposed to be, and then they will have, okay, say let's just get the quattro tracks down first. Then we get guitars. Then we get maracas separately. Then we get lead instruments separately, and all of the other instruments going and do that. Then they get the vocalist, the lead vocalist. Then they put the backup singers there. Then one of the singers might sing two different things. They might sing a tenor, then come back with a baritone or some kind of. So all these things happen in a studio, and then the studio guy now goes in and he listens to it and mix and balances everything to give you the song that you're hearing on the radio now. So it is completely different from now. On the other hand, I have actually some parang bands can actually perform exactly as it is they have on their studio recording, because they probably practiced the song itself so much, probably for the recording, that when they have to actually perform, they actually sing just like they're recording. Right. Others do, because you may have when you're on a live performance, you obviously incorporate different things. You try to incorporate the crowd in your performance. You try to get a different styling. Obviously, the dancing is an effect as well too. The dancing that happens in front of the band is an effect as well. So there lies big differences between recorded music and actual live music itself.
Which is more difficult?
Recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, recording. It takes longer, you see. It is hours, a lot of hours and a lot of days in the studio to put on sometimes one track.
Do you make back your money?
Right. No, you do not make back your money. Okay, the only people I feel that making back their money is soca parang artists. Those are the ones who make back their money. A parang entertainer or a parang band does not make back their money. But what they do is that the track that they do and maybe the YouTube video that they do along with it help them get the jobs that make them the money.
Right.
But to actually say, yeah, I get back my money from how many money that I spend in the studio. This year, no. I may get back in years to go because I'm
So in
performing the
other
same
words,
tracks over and over.
it appears that when you do a studio version, that investment is really an investment in marketing.
Correct. That's what it is. Yes, it is.
Right. So people associate people. In other words, that's a permanent advertisement that you could always use. People would always
Yes.
pull it up and use it when they say, "Yeah, like so this song that I didn't realize is them I was listening to all these years." So all right.
So people actually ask you that because a lot of commercial persons, they actually, when they hire the Paramount, they actually, can you send me a recording of your music? Even if it is a CD recording, or if most of them actually ask you for the live recording. They actually want to see how the band performs live, rather than a studio performance. Because they're actually bands that actually sound way better live than they do on their CDs.
Right.
So they actually, do you have a live recording of where you performed last, or maybe a couple weeks ago? And so sometimes when you go to these performances, you have to have persons actually recording your performance, so that if they ask for a recording, you have one in your gallery in order to be able to send it out to them.
So in other words, yeah, it's live recordings tend to also promote the band. So yeah, it's important to have somebody who recording. Now the problem with recording is if you're recording with a cell phone, a mobile device, and not a recording from a proper setup, if we may put it that way.
Right.
What you're hearing may not be the song that the producer of the music, the arranger, may want to hear. Let me say that in another way. I was recently talking to a steel band arranger, and he was saying to me that he has a problem when a certain Facebook entity comes to a performance and uses a mobile phone, and he records the band's performance, and then he puts it up on Facebook. When he puts it up on Facebook now, he finds the music that he produced and arranged isn't coming across correct, accurate. It's not a proper representation in terms of song quality and in terms of the product that is being that he's recording with. And
right. No,
so it impacts
it is
when
all
you have to
according
do recordings.
Yeah, it's all according to what you listen to the recording on. Because if you take your phone, and they have some remarkable phones these days, and you take this phone, or you take a recording and you send it to someone to listen to that recording on their phone, it's not going to sound the same. So some people, you have to actually maybe put on your headphones, or maybe play it on a stereo or something like that, in order to hear what you actually want to be listening for. And you'll be surprised at the different song that you get than rather if you just play it on your phone. Because I mean, if you're playing it on your phone, you're not going to hear the box bass, so you're not going to get any depth at all on your normal phone. When you put on the headphones, you'll be surprised you're actually hearing the box bass then. So it is on an inexpensive way of marketing your band, rather than you have to go and do a video or anything like that. And it actually is, for some bands, this is pretty effective.
What about dress style choreography?
Nice.
People associate a parang band with the front line, the women and the men dressed in a particular way. I haven't seen that change over the years. At least that is one of the things in my little world that has maintained a certain consistency. That seems to be a staple that has remained. Is there a reasoning behind that, or is it that what is the significance of dress and style and that sort of choreography that the bands carry?
Right. I always remember a guy called Jimenez from Saint Cecilia Parang Band. And I remember when we first went into the National Parang Association, and the females in the front line were wearing some tops that was off their shoulders. The tops were off the shoulders and stuff like that, right? And he came to the band and he said, "Hey, what?" He said, "You're singing about the birth of Christ." And he said that if you're singing about the birth of Christ, you should be dressed properly. So that these singers them shouldn't have these things off the shoulders, should be properly covered. And our band specifically, we took that to heart. And if you look at all of our uniforms, you will see that all of our uniforms are properly attired uniforms. In the initial stages, we used to wear polos. So you're going out here performing, you're putting a polo or whatever it is. But we have found out that persons are more respective of you, are more to enjoy your music when you dress appropriately. And we are seeing a lot more bands now dressing appropriately for when they have to perform. You rarely see a band coming out in a polo or something like that. And that is not just an end part, but when they perform commercially as well, they would normally put on the, or what we terminology, we say we best dandan.
Yeah.
You'll normally see the bands and are putting on their best dandan. And again, I go back to the junior parang level. If you've ever been to a junior parang competition, you see all these schools putting on all their nice clothes, all these children and them dressing up on their nice dresses and flowers in their hair, and they're all pretty up. And that is the correct what we're trying to bring out for them. You're singing again. We talk about the Annunciation and Nacimiento, and you have to be respectful when you're singing these sort of songs. And the attire in itself is also very important for you to have the proper attire when you are doing performances. Now, some bands also play in bars. And when they play in the bars, then that's the time they will be a little more dressed down. Because there's a bar you're playing in, so you may find them using polos and stuff because it's a bar performance. But there are those that actually fully dress up in bar performances as well. So yes, the attire is of crucialism for your band. In fact, sometimes when companies actually call us, they ask us what we're going to be wearing. If we're going to be coming to the performance fully outfitted. And they say fully outfitted, meaning you're going to be wearing appropriate parang dressing. And so we have to tell them, yes, we have a choice of parang outfits that even if you want to choose, we actually send them the list of uniforms that we have, and we ask them to, okay, you want to pick one of these uniforms that your house maybe a liking to, and they may tell you, okay, right, fine, we like this one. So it is also a means of promoting the band by actually having proper uniform in your band itself.
When you all get a gig, this is in keeping with the point you're just making, right? When you get a gig, are you able to charge what the band is worth? Because in order to stay relevant and to get the gig, your price competitiveness impacts upon, I would imagine, whether they turn to an alternate band or whether they embrace you, meaning the commercial entity. When it is you have to outfit a band to dress in the way that is fitting of in terms of all those fancy dresses and so on.
Right.
If the band had to fit that cost, that's plenty money.
Of course. Yes. A dress for one of the females could range between $300 and $500 per female in the band. Right. So, and you're talking about some bands we have 9 females in our band. So let's add up the figures there, and you could see. But you're correct that companies themselves do not pay bands adequately. There's always a haggle. My budget is this. Your costing is way above what my budget is. Can you do it for this cost? And then when you actually bring, okay, say, let's meet halfway. And then you actually come up with a figure that is reasonable enough for them and that you can handle. Then they ask you the next question. Are you coming with your own song system?
Right.
Right? So Now the band now's worth now is not just its performance, but its ability to be able to provide its own song system for the budget that the company has. And that's why it's always a haggle. I think Alicia herself had mentioned that on a tweet a couple of weeks ago about these companies asking you to pay for these low rates and then asking you to work with your own song system, because they have a DJ and the DJ itself not working with equipment to mic a parang band. So you know have to work with your own mic, microphones, microphone stands, cables, plugins, mixer board, and sometimes in accordance to if the DJ don't want you to hook up in his system, you have to now work with your own speakers.
Right.
And that is a challenge that parang bands, big commercial parang bands, is being faced with over the last couple of years. I want to make a reference of the same uniform, the same uniform that I remember. There was a time that we were in Trinity Mall and we were playing in Trinity Mall, properly attired, everything, and we had this pretty outfit that we were using. And there was a guy that came up to us and said, he wants to hire the band. He liked what the band is sung in and everything like that. And we gave him a price and everything, and he agreed and everything like that. And it was the performance was at his home, and he was having this big party. And the bands, the band, that is way back when the band, our band we were way younger than that, and we certain things we didn't consider important. We do now. And the band went to the guy's performance in a polo because we told ourselves it's a house. So all he hired us, it's a house. And when we arrived at his home and we played, he came to us and told us he was disappointed. So we thought the disappointment was in the performance. It wasn't in the performance. It was in the attire. He said because when he saw us at Trinity Mall, we were in these pretty outfits. And that is what he was expecting to hire.
Right.
He was expecting to hire a band with pretty outfits, the females at them looking in the pretty dresses and stuff like that. And the band came in polos. And we learned our lessons from that. Right? We learn our lessons that you do not see Los Amigos Cantadores anywhere in a polo unless we go in house to house.
Right.
Right? So even if it's a house performance, a commercial performance, an end-part performance, we're always properly attired. And a lot of the younger bands coming up now are following that trend to be properly attired when they perform.
All right. From a musical perspective, do you see parang soca and authentic parang as two different genres? We already covered that, you know, from a commercial perspective, if you're going to perform as a band, you got to be able to perform parang soca, a little Latin, authentic parang. The more diverse your genre, your repertoire, the more commercially viable you are in terms of being hired for work.
Yes,
but
of course.
From a musical point of view, as a musician, do you see parang music and parang soca, or soca parang as they call it now? Do you see that as two mutually exclusive genre, or you think, what is your view on that? Because the marriage of the two, parang soca, parang and soca into parang soca, or soca parang as they say, is that a move away from authentic parang music?
Well, yeah, let's answer your question. It's a move away from authentic parang music, definitely. Right? My take on it is that the parang soca or the soca parang has its area and parang has its area. Right? To the extent that a parang band has to incorporate soca parang or parang soca in its repertoire, as you said, in order to be viable on the commercial market. But parang in itself is definitely a separate genre than soca parang, or we call parang soca. And
hence the reason NPAT don't want parang soca on the stage in competition.
In competition, correct.
In competition, all right.
Yeah. You have to remember that we have to maintain, as an association, we have to maintain our genre, right? It's sometimes very difficult because the patrons and them tell you they want to hear this and they want, so it's pretty difficult. But as the gentleman was saying earlier, and he was talking about all the different musics in America. I think he was talking about all the different genres of music. and how they're able to still maintain that their brand of music. The Parang Association still has to keep its authenticity alive. In fact, there was San Rafael used to have something called an authentic Parang competition. They used to have that a couple of years ago. I think it was prior to COVID. It got clipped when COVID came up, and all the Parang bands up there had to play fully authentic Parang instrumentation, right? So they themselves were trying to keep that authenticity alive, as the Parang Association is trying as well to keep it alive. It's a struggle, Friday. I'm telling you, it's a struggle. It is not an easy task, and it is a struggle to keep that art form alive and yet still be viable in the industry.
Calypso Crazy, commonly just referred to as Crazy, he would have sang "Put Jesus in Your Christmas," and which to me has remained timeless. That's one of those songs that you hear for Christmas that it really has been incorporated into the DNA of Trinity Christmas to hear that song. Just like Daisy Voices, Alegria. But this is the same artist, the same performer who sing Nanny Wine and I Want It. And Paul.
Yeah. Well, let me say something. I have a friend who, as a good friend, I want to call him. That's what I say is a friend, right? And this friend of mine, in the morning period, when I wake up, he always sends me these nice, he also sends these nice prayers and a beautiful sunshine and all these different things. And after lunch, he sends you a naked picture.
Yeah.
You understand? Of some woman. And I just asked him, I was wondering, I said, your morning period is different from your afternoon period. You understand? He feels a certain way in the morning and then he feels a certain way in the afternoon. Right? So maybe Crazy himself goes through the thing of how he feels. You know, this year I feel this way. I feel Jesus in my Christmas this year. And and next time he feels Nanny Wine, right? So, but I think in it, a lot of people appreciate Crazy for both of his stylings.
Yeah. Well, I think Crazy is about the commerce too, because when we interact with him, even here on the program, he's very, very articulate and he understands fully what he's doing. But that's a show for him, not for us here. Sometimes I wonder about what I'm saying that to say this. Do you think it's a smoother fit for a Parangero to get into soca or for a soca artist to get into Parang?
I think that as a Parang artist, it's way easier to get into soca. I mean, or soca Parang then. All you need is somebody to write a good soca Parang song for you. And you're good. Right? It's in English. And in English is your natural language. So it's easy for you to sing a soca Parang song. A soca Parang artist now, who have to now sing let's say you have to sing a Parang song. Now you have to, the Parang song is a different sort of a rhythm, 1. 2, you now have to actually learn the language, learn the pronunciation. And if you have to actually learn how to perform like a Parang artist, rather than a soca artist is always the easiest thing is to make sure you could gyrate your waist. And even if you're singing soca Parang, that your motion itself is completely different than if you have to sing a Parang song. So for me, I think it's harder for a soca Parang artist or a Parang artist to actually come and sing Parang than the opposite way. And I've known people, a lot more people, to actually move from performing Parang to soca Parang than actually hearing soca Parang people come and sing Parang instead.
Right.
It's not that it can be done, because I've heard some soca Parang artists actually singing some Spanish in their songs as well. So not that I say it cannot be done. But the move is a little harder.
So yeah, my question now. If I am performing, if your band is performing Aguinaldos and other Nacimientos, right? Which do you sing first? Because when you start singing the hymns as we speak, then the hymns of Parangs,
Right.
I'm saying I'm making that
Yes.
reference, right?
Yes.
You're celebrating the birth of Christ, and then you go into Soca Parang. The mood of the crowd, remember you're performing for an audience. That
Yes.
mood
Yes.
going in
Yes.
a different direction, and how you would dance to Aguinaldos and how you would receive a Parang Soca. People might get up and want to whine on each other in the Parang Soca.
Well, that has happened. That has happened. Yes, obviously. Especially if you're playing in bars. If you're playing in bars, yes, definitely people are gonna get in that happy festive kind of move when you sing the Parang Soca.
And how you bringing
And
them
obviously
back
when
to?
you
How you bringing them
when
back down to?
well, most of the time is that you don't actually come back. Once you're heading into the Parang Soca part of your performance, you go straight down to the end with that. Right? You don't come back and sing maybe like sometimes we would sing like Obama's Agosar in the end, which means we getting ready to leave, right? And it's fast, it's kind of fast in tempo and stuff like that, so it doesn't affect your performance itself. But most of the time, when you start off your performance with maybe an Aguinaldo or an Nacimiento, now again, there's two types. Commercialism itself does not dictate that you sing an Annunciation or an Nacimiento first. If you're going to play for a company, it doesn't dictate that. So you can start with a Alabamba, right? And then maybe sing an Nacimiento, and then go into a Latin, and then maybe Soca Parang going down to the end, right? Certain bands formatted differently according to the audience itself. You may get into your Soca Parang a little earlier, and then maybe a heavier Latin, and then go down and stuff like that. If you're doing house to house parang, now that's a different concept. A house to house parang dictates that you wake up the person first with a song that is called a levanta or a serenade. So you have to wake up the individual, and in waking up the individual, you have to let them know who you are. Somos los amigos cantadores de Trincity. We are los amigos cantadores from Trincity. So you have to let them know, get up, we are the Parang Band, we come to sing Aguinaldos and Nacimientos, we from Trincity. And you keep singing that until that individual opens the door. If the individual do not open the door, then you move on to the next house. People used to make joke and say they parang the wrong house. But in fact, it has happened. I am sure that every parang band in their life has parang the wrong house. So if things go right and the door and the lights do open, then an invitation is given to you to enter their home. And it is not just the opening of the door. A lot of people who receive parang groups don't understand the full concept of it. You have to invite the parang group into your home by telling them to come in. So you come into their home, and once you have arrived in their home, you now sing an Annunciación or a Nacimiento. Or some people sing both Annunciación and Nacimiento. So you're coming to bring the good news to their home. Mm-hmm. After you have sung that, then you can sing any sort of secular song. So you could sing a joropo, you could sing a Castellan, you could play a Castellan, you could play any one of those things. You could even sing a soca parang in someone's home when you're doing house parang. Some people actually enjoy a nice soca parang in their house. And at that instant, they will now invite you to either have a meal. It may be people that look for pastel, look for ham, sandwich, all kind of different things, cookies, all them different things. And then they'll invite you to have a beverage. It could be a soft beverage, it could be hard stuff. And once you have partaked in what they are offering, you could either sing one more song and you sing something called a despedida, which means that you're leaving their home. And that is the different aspect of paranging in itself. And there are actually a lot of people who enjoy that aspect of it rather than the commercial aspect of it. The paranderos need the commercial aspect of it because they need, in the end of the season, to be able to hand their fellow paranderos a little change. And you notice I say a little change because even if you go through a full season, you still aren't going to get your worth at the end of the season. But some paranderos love the concept of the house parang.
Right.
Because it is more enjoyable. They enjoy them. They bring joy to people at their homes, and people appreciate them more.
The Parang Festival, or the competitive national festival that pre-existed the COVID period.
Right.
The money at stake, was it sufficient to cover the performance and the preparation?
All right, so I'm going to just give you a little history of that in itself, right? Because as I tell you, I was the president of the Parang Association. So in the initial stages, I mean, when we entered the Parang Association, the prize money, the first prize was $20,000. So the band that came first got $20,000, and I think bands after that got like 15, 10, coming down. I think last one is like $3,000. Obviously, your preparation for that is worth more than $3,000. Because in competitions now, you're talking about uniform, you're talking about repair of instrumentation, transportation. Then you have to get persons to choreograph your both singing and dancing, and then you have persons who have to put your music together. Right. So in all that effort, if you do not have someone in the inside of your band who can do that, then you have to now actually go on the outside and bring someone in to be able to do that. And they're not going to do that for free. So after you have added all that up, and let's just say there are 10 bands that are in the finals, you end up 10th. You have actually not recovered your costing that you would have done. Right? Now, over the years, hold on a second. Yes, so over the years, there was an effort to increase the prize money from the $20,000. And they have gone up to $40,000, $60,000. And the highest it has gone up to was in 2010, when the prize money was $100,000. The first prize was $100,000. I think that was the year that when Ms. Bisasa was the prime minister, and all culturals were getting $1 million for their shows and stuff like that. Right. And the Parang Association was one of the recipients of that. And the prize money that year was $100,000. And the increments coming down from that led to a band would have actually been able to maintain hire someone to get their band properly ready for a Parang finals itself. Right. Since then, that's 2010. The Parang Association has not recovered from that. We had one resurgent of the competition in 2016, and after that, we have not had have competition since then. Because of the struggle that is happening with the Parang Association, right, with regards to sponsorship, to funding from the ministry and stuff like that. And it is truly a sad thing that the powers to be do not think that the art form of Parang itself should remain a viable art form in Trinidad and Tobago. And that they do not think that Parang itself deserves the investment that would keep it striving for both the art form and for the paranderos themselves.
We have 1 more minute. I'm giving you the final word. What would you like to see happen in the Parang industry? What is if you have to change one thing? Or if you have to add one thing, what would that be?
I would remove, oh God, I love soca. I love carnival, right? I'm a Trinidadian. But I would like to see the amount of carnivalism that happens around Christmas time decreased. Because the carnivalism, and I mean cannibalism, but the carnivalism is actually taking over. And the paranderos are being stifled because persons are way happier to go to a carnival fete or a carnival launch rather than come to a parang festival. And I would like to see that us as Trinidadians respect the concept of Christmas and the efforts that the paranderos are doing to foster happiness and the message that we keep trying to bring for Christmas itself.
I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us. I know you had some concerns that, an hour and a half may be too long, but you see, it's too short. We covered a lot.
Well, we lost about 20 minutes. We lost about 20 minutes.
No, but we got content and we got value. We will invite you again, Mr. Makano.
Sure,
it's been a good evening, and you've been a good explainer of the history and really you walked us through a lot in terms of what are the things that you all deal with as paranderos on a day-to-day basis in fostering the art form, and we appreciate the struggle. So thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to inviting you on another occasion, and hopefully you're right there with us and you return to share some more of your knowledge.
Well, I actually enjoyed myself on the program, so yeah, I was a little hesitant because I tell myself I won't ever could talk for this or want something in truth, boy. But I mean, it passed nicely, and I enjoy being on the program.
Thanks again. All the best for your band for the rest of the season, and blessings in the new year. Godspeed and grace. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Mr. Makano. Thank you, Farid.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. David, over to you. Blessings and safe journey home. Blessings to the public.
Thank you. Yes, be safe out there. That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk right here on the Power 102 Digital.